A few weeks ago, I came across a video about an affordable 64mm flat burrs grinder priced at around $150 in the US, and I immediately wondered, is this grinder as good as my DF64? Is it compatible with my SSP burrs? For those unfamiliar with the DF64, there are plenty of reviews out there, but in short, it's an excellent value option for an intermediate coffee enthusiast. It costs about twice the price of a Baratza Encore ESP, for example, and half of the price of a higher-end model like the Timor Sculptor 078S. I chose the DF64 because it's at the point where diminishing returns start to kick in, but you may still go a bit deeper in the rabbit hole and install the SSP burrs. But what are the SSP burrs? These burrs became popular among coffee enthusiasts for their high precision and distinct flavor profiles. A single set can cost almost half of the price of a new DF64. It's somewhat like comparing lenses to cameras in photography, an upgrade that can cost almost the same as the base equipment. I currently own 3 pairs of these burrs, one that was designed to bring out the classic espresso notes, another that emphasizes clarity but sacrifices body, and a third that is somewhere in between. In my ideal setup, I would have 2 sets mounted for side-by-side tests. Swapping burrs is a hassle and not ideal for consistency. If I need to swap the burrs, grind the coffee, prepare the puck, extract my coffee, the first one is already cold. And for daily use, I would like to have one for this more modern espresso profile that I could also use for pour over, and another one that is more focused on the classic espresso notes. And I would change based on the beans, because depending on the beans, I think one burr can be better or the other, and then I would have this flexibility, and I could also compare which I liked the most when I was dialing in and choose easier my perfect or my preferred grinder and burr for that bean, for that method. But the problem is that owning 2 DF64 is a bit pricey for a hobbyist. Each of these grinders cost 400 euros, and that's where the Shardor becomes a great opportunity. If it works well, it's about 150 euros savings per grinder. But let's consider the entry-level use case. If I'm just getting into specialty coffee and looking for my first electric grinder, is this a good option? By the way, if you're building your setup, I have another video covering various options for typical usage profiles, people who make only espresso or make a few lattes or several lattes in a row, people who enjoy do-it-yourself projects or not. And it's all summarized in a spreadsheet with links to the specs, estimated prices, and other details. I'll leave a link in the description and also a card here if you're interested. Now, in the $150 to $250 or euros range, you've got the Baratza Encore, Varia VS3, Eureka Mignon Manuale, DF54, just to name a few. And I was recommending the DF54 as a no-brainer until this Shardor came along. If you could stretch your budget, I was recommending the DF64. Among other advantages, its compatibility with SSP burrs, making it a strong choice for those who are likely to upgrade in the near future, which I've seen happen a lot in the community. But now, in both scenarios, I think the Shardor deserves serious consideration, so let's compare the Shardor against the DF64. It's a light grinder, it weighs 3 kilos, roughly half the DF64. The body is plastic, but the grinding chamber is fully metal. The included silicone mat could be much better. It's thin and doesn't stay in place, but without it, your cup could easily slide off. I think this system with a cup holder in the DF64 is much better. The motor has 260 watts compared to 250 in the DF64 and 150 in the DF54. But this grinder spins at 550 RPM, this one at 1400 RPM. which in theory would lead to more fines produced by the DF64. Despite the lower RPM, it grinds fast. It took about 10 seconds to grind 20 grams of an Ethiopian coffee for espresso setting. With the SSP high uniformity burrs, the ones designed for classic espresso notes, it took 45 seconds to grind the same 20 grams of coffee, which tells me that the stock burrs are quite aggressive. Replacing the burrs was easy. It's the same mechanism that we have in the DF64. You just turn the collar counterclockwise to open and clockwise to close, and you replace the burrs. Alignment was on par with how my DF64 was delivered. It was not perfect. Then it took about 15 to 20 minutes for me to have it very well aligned, perfect aligned, using the aluminum foil trick. Retention is a bit worse in the Shardor. Starting with the grinder completely clean, new out of the box, I added 20 grams of coffee each time until the output was the same as the input. And after 60 grams ground, the variation was from 0.2 to 0.4, usually in the lower end, but there's a bit of retention. After swapping the burrs and doing a full clean, I removed 1.7 grams. Part of that is permanent retention, part of that is exchanged. While it's difficult to measure the latter precisely, we know that it's no more than 1.7 grams. And for comparison, I did the same with my DF64, and I've got 1 gram out of it. So the maximum difference in total retention between those two grinders is 0.7. Now you may ask, can we notice the difference in the cup if we grind the same coffee with the same burrs in the DF64 and in the Shardor? Ideally, we should have two identical pairs of burrs equally seasoned for a side-by-side test. However, remember that this grinder spins at 550 RPM and this one at 1400 RPM, which means that the DF64 will produce more fines. And I believe that this amount of fines will have much greater impact in the taste than the 0.7 grams in retention. Therefore, I can only speculate that an average coffee enthusiast wouldn't perceive the difference between the two grinders based on the retention alone. One thing that is clear to me though is that the F64 is more consistent in the output. I rarely get more than 0.1 or 0.2 deviation when I use the F64, and as I mentioned, I was getting 0.2 to 0.5 in the Shardor, more frequently in the lower end, but it's higher than the F64. Of course, different people will value differently this consistency. For me, it's slightly annoying to add 2 extra beans or removing 0.2 grams of ground coffee, but it's still worth saving 150 euros. In terms of versatility, both grinders can handle everything from Turkish to French press with stepless adjustment. I managed to choke my ECM with the Shardor set to 13, and set to 16 I got a 1:2 ratio in 77 seconds, 37.6 grams out. Flavor-wise, the Shardor leans more toward body and sweetness with mild acidity, but I was comparing against the Multipurpose burrs in the F64, which are known for high clarity and brightness, so this may have amplified the contrast. With the SSP burrs installed, the high uniformity ones, the zero, the reference, the point where the burr starts touching, moved to 40. It's a fixed indicator. Then I created an adjustable zero marker, 3D printed, and it's free for download. I left it both on printables and Maker Word. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to 3D print as well. At the number 60, equivalent to 20, I pulled a 1:2 ratio shot, 37 grams out in 25 seconds. And to me, this shot was clearly sweeter and more balanced than with the stock burrs. So I believe that the stock burrs fall between the high clarity and the traditional espresso profile. Unlike the DF64, the Shardor offers time dosing via a touchscreen. It's easy to program and some might like the design. Personally, since I single dose, I would prefer a cheaper model without the timer and screen. Regarding noise, the Shardor is louder than the DF64. Honestly, this doesn't bother me much. Among the grinders that I've had, only Eureka Zero was significantly quieter than the others, but I know that some people are more sensitive to noise. For me, a big question is durability. The DF64 has been on the market for a few years, while Shardor with the 64mm flat burrs just arrived. We don't know how well it holds up long term, and it has more electronics. It's not easy to open, and it's unclear if spare parts will be readily available. That said, reviews for other Shardor models mention good customer support and quick replacement when under warranty. A few other minor details. I don't like the non-standard cup. I prefer the traditional ones with a holder placing it close to the chute. You can grind directly in the portafilter, but I found it a bit messy, especially with a plastic casing that naturally creates more static. However, you can use the Ross droplet technique, RDT, by spraying water on the beans. That almost eliminates the static. You can adjust the grinding time and leave the hopper full of beans. It holds about 250 grams, but you can also use as a single dose, as I mentioned before. It has anti-popcorning and a lid that holds the beans until the motor starts. It's a mechanism similar to what we have in Eureka, and I think it's excellent. I prefer to always start grinding with the motor already running. I think it increases the durability of the motor and other parts. The bellow works well, and it's very efficient in reducing the retention. However, I think it could be a little bit bigger, but that's okay. The chute is magnetically attached, very easy to remove and makes cleaning easier. The power cord is very short, 75 centimeters, 30 inches, and it came with the UK plug and an adapter for European outlet, but only because it came directly from the factory. On AliExpress, I'm not sure if they are sending the 220 volts version with the UK or the European plug. For the 110 volts, I'm assuming that they are sending with the American plug. And just to be completely transparent, I bought this unit directly from the manufacturer before it became available on AliExpress. Initially, I imported a unit from Amazon US, but I had to use it with a transformer and it was tripping the circuit breaker, then I had to return it. But I sent a feedback to the company suggesting that they could sell this unit in the 220 volts in Europe, that it would have a high demand. They replied to me offering the opportunity to have my brand in this grinder if I acquired 1,000 units, and that they could also sell me a unit for evaluation. Then I decided to buy the unit despite the very low chances of becoming a grinder reseller, because I didn't know when I would be able to put my hands on a 220 volt unit, and I was very curious to test the performance and compatibility with the SSP burrs. I was impressed with the performance. It can be a solid option for the entry-level user as well as for those specifically interested in using the SSP burrs. Durability is a question mark, but at nearly 40% less than the DF64, it's a risk that I'm personally willing to take. You will have to decide if it's worth it for you. Before buying, I suggest reading the user reviews on Amazon US. I've added links for all the grinders that I mentioned. Compare and make an informed decision. Some of the links will be affiliate links, which means that if you choose to use them, it will help me to have more money for my testers at no extra cost. But if you find the grinders cheaper elsewhere, or if you don't want to buy through my links, it's also fine, of course. And if you want to learn more about coffee setups for different user profiles, always focusing on the best value for your money, check out this other video where I cover everything from machines and grinders to accessories. Okay? Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.